All right, we're back, and we are going to move on to the low poly aspect of our high poly. So right now what I'm doing is I am just basically grouping together what I feel would share the same materials in Substance Painter. So all the cloth being in one, and to export everything, make sure in ZBrush's export settings, you uncheck group. The reason for this is because if you don't have it unchecked and you export it as an OBJ, it comes out as like separate meshes per subtool, and it really slows down your computer. So drag in all the OBJs, make sure everything is properly renamed in Maya, and we're going to start with the topology process. Selecting the first subtool, which is the body, selecting that and clicking make object live. So that basically makes it unclickable, and you can just start with the quad draw tool. Now with this model you can get away with a lot just because this character is wearing a mask. I always start with the head, and then I go with the arms. And as you can see, my quad draw techniques is basically that I'm not going too in depth with the detail right now. I'm just trying to block out everything super low poly. This just gives me the flexibility of being able to make things high poly later on if I wanted to. Now depending on the game or film project, they would give you a set poly count. Usually when I do my contracts, the companies request a certain poly range, 30K to 70K or 3K. So I always like to give myself that room for flexibility and always go as low poly as I can. Alrighty, so now we're done that. Just gonna see if it looks right. Awesome. So now moving on to, I guess, cloth is what I called it. So I grouped the gloves into cloth as well, just to make things easy for me. Now this is a little tricky just because of the little like straps coming out of the glove, so I had to work kind of around it. Yes, I could have hid those faces, but I did want to include the straps in the glove for the topology process. I actually had a different thought process when it came to this glove. My plan was to just make a flat plane with the straps. And of course, I do have my symmetry tool on because I have both gloves symmetrical. And the cool thing is that considering our character is symmetrical at the moment, if we do make any mistakes on one side, we can always delete the other side with the mistakes on it and just mirror the correct side. So, as you can see here, I decided to change my thought process. The reason for this is because when I made just the plane, the problem with planes is only one side is going to be textured, the other side is completely invisible. And I want this strap to be able to be seen from any angle. So I am just making it like a rectangular prism. Alright, so now we're done the gloves. We're gonna go on to the easy part, which is the belt. Yeah, I like to start off with the hard, well, things that are difficult for me personally, which is usually the body and then certain aspects. Pants are pretty easy, just make some loops around, starting from the crotch area. So unlike the straps on the boxing gloves, I actually wanted to keep these bandages or straps a single planar. The reason for that is because I didn't feel the need to waste polys on making it thick. It's wrapped around his legs, so you're not gonna see the inside of the straps, so yeah. As for the feathers, I initially made them in Maya, so I still have the files for the low poly. Again, my initial thought process with the feathers was to create just a single plane, but you lose the backside because they go invisible. So I'm basically making this 3D, it's like what we did in school when we made feathers. Anyone make feathers? I don't know. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about in terms of the symmetry thing. So I did have an issue with one of the sides, so I just deleted those faces and mirrored. And now we've got his funky hair. Now I figured out an easy way for myself to work with hair like this, which is basically when it comes to the points that stick out, I usually have a hexagonal UV topo around it, so that way I can create 2 quads on the tips. I know it's not making any sense right now, but just take a look here. So I'm gonna form this hexagonal shape. So yeah, I'm making the hexagonal shape around these points, and then that just allows me to easily create 2 quads, because our goal is to have the least amount of triangles, or obviously the worst thing is n-gons, anything with more vertices than 4. Alright, time to work on the other easy component, the mask. Simply just going around the beak, and then yeah, just creating my shapes. I always try to keep in mind having the right amount of edges so that way everything works out and I don't have to end up with triangles or n-gons. Now with these, I could have manually retopoed, but because they're such simple shapes, they're simply just cylinders, I literally just created cylinders and put them in their place. And again, with a necklace, I had the low poly of that as well because I made it initially in Maya. So now that we're done all the low poly, we're gonna fix up all the clipping because there is quite a bit of clipping going on. So moving vertices, edges, making sure everything is perfect in the sense that there's no clipping. As you can see here, I am basically trying my best to match and line up the edges with the boxing glove edges, even though they're different. It's just because we're working with a lower poly model, it just looks better. But you gotta take some L's as this right here with the shorts. You can't get it perfectly in tune with each other, so you're not gonna see below the character. And if you do, we can fix that once we add more polys. So just finishing up the straps here, aligning everything up. And this is a really important part, especially for when you get into the baking process in Substance Painter. And that's pretty much it. So in the next part, we are gonna do the fun part of low poly, which is UV unwrapping.